Good morning and welcome back to our news bulletin, coming to you live from Warsaw. And begin on a domestic note. Prime Minister Donald Tusk will announce a new economic strategy for Poland today at 11 a.m. CET. The document is said to include, among other initiatives, plans to remove much of the red tape on the construction of wind farms in the country. The project was unveiled by Prime Minister Tusk back in January, along with the slogan, Poland's Breakthrough Year. Attending the meeting, apart from Donald Tusk, will be the Polish Minister of Finance, Andrzej Domański. In the last couple of days, the Polish Ministry of Finance, along with the Ministry of State Assets, have been putting the final touches on the plan, the details of which are known only to a selected few in the government.
Poland's Breakthrough Year. Tomorrow we'll talk about how our country might soon become the best and safest place on earth. After all, the vast majority of Poles, despite Poland's enemies and eternal naysayers, want peace, growth and prosperity. I believe in us.
Kosovo voted in the country's general elections last night. Sunday exit polls showed Prime Minister Albin Kurti's self-determination movement in first place with over 42% of the vote. This, however, is not enough to form a majority government, and so the Prime Minister's party will have to form a coalition. Let's go over to our correspondent, Paweł Trzaskowski, who is in Pristina and has more. Good morning, Paweł. Good to see you. So what happens now? What kind of coalition can we expect?
Well, first of all, the dust is slowly settling after the Sunday's elections in Kosovo. I am now standing in Pristina, the country's capital, on the main boulevard where the last decoration from the political rallies that were held on Saturday is being disassembled as I speak. The political rallies that were held ahead of the Sunday's vote, which, as you rightly mentioned, produced expected results. The self-determination Veteran Dossier party was victorious. However, this victory was not as big as the one the party enjoyed 4 years ago when it won in a landslide, mainly because of a very successful anti-corruption campaign. 4 years ago, Veteran Dossier got more than 50% of the votes, which allowed them to run independently, to govern independently for 4 years. But over this time, the support for Veteran Dossier has waned by 10%, as the results show. And the result for this decline is, first of all, the dissatisfaction of certain groups of Kosovan society, especially the public workers, but also Albin Kurti's decisive crackdown on Serbian minority in Kosovo, a crackdown that resulted in the EU and US imposing sanctions on Kosovo. And this is important for internal politics in the country because Kosovo is the most pro-Western, pro-EU oriented country in the region. And this is why Veteran Dossier will probably have to form a coalition government with one of the two parties that scored around 20% of the vote, either the Democratic League of Kosovo or the Democratic Party of Kosovo. Both of them lean more to the right than the socially oriented Veteran Dossier party. However, experts say that both of them could become a potential coalition partner. Back to you.
Paweł Trzaskowski reporting from Pristina. Much appreciated. Thank you. And now we're moving across the Atlantic. US President Donald Trump has said it is too early to talk about effects of his conversation with Vladimir Putin. On a different note, Trump has also said that on Monday he will be announcing 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports. And here's more.
If we are talking, I don't want to tell you about the conversation, it's too early, but I do believe we're making progress. We want to stop the Ukraine-Russia war, and I want to stop it just because I hate to see all these young people being killed. The soldiers are being killed by the hundreds of thousands. I don't want U.S. steel being owned by a foreign country. They can have they don't have a controlling, they have an investment. All they're going to have is an investment. Any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff.
What about aluminum, sir?
Aluminum too.
10%?
25%.
25 for aluminum?
25 for both.
And we continue on the topic of tariffs. China has replied to American tariffs with its own on some US goods. Meanwhile, France has promised that the European Union will soon respond. Australia, on the other hand, will attempt to make a case for an exemption. The plan announced by Beijing includes a 15% border tax on imports of U.S. coal and LNG products. The response came just minutes after the U.S. imposed a flat 10% tariff on all Chinese products. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot has said that the EU will retaliate against American restrictions, adding, quote, "It is in no one's interest to start a trade war with the European Union." Australia has taken a less combative approach. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has said that his country will navigate any differences diplomatically and asked for Australia to be given an exemption to any steel and aluminum tariffs. U.S. National Security Adviser Mike Waltz has said that Trump administration will discuss financial support for Ukraine this week. In a televised interview, Waltz went on to say that the United States must recover some of the costs of supporting the Ukrainian military since the Russian invasion began in 2022.
Waltz's comments come ahead of the two-day Munich Security Conference, scheduled to begin February 14th. Trump's security advisor also said the future of U.S. aid to Ukraine was among the U.S. president's priorities for the coming talks in Germany, adding that Washington will engage in a partnership with the Ukrainians in terms of rare earths and natural resources, including oil and gas. The future of American aid for Ukraine has been under question since Donald Trump won re-election in November 2024.
And that's because under
Previously
President
approved
Trump,
weapons packages from the U.S. are about to run out, and the U.S. is yet to allocate more funds for supporting Ukraine.
In his evening address, the president of Ukraine praised the Baltic states for decoupling from the Russian energy grid. At the same time, Volodymyr Zelenskyy appealed to the rest of the European Union to follow suit and break the last remaining ties binding them with the Russian Federation.
The Baltic states, good friends of Ukraine, have disconnected from the Russian energy grid. Their energy systems are now fully synchronized with the European continental system. Ukraine had already done this in 2022, and now the Baltic states have also freed themselves from this dependence. Moscow will no longer be able to use energy as a weapon against the Baltic states. This also means that Europe has become even more cohesive. This is exactly the course all of us in Europe should continue to follow across the continent. This is particularly relevant for Central European countries, those that still have agreements with Russia.
According to the U.S. think tank Institute for the Study of War, Russia is using the experience gained from the war in Ukraine against NATO. Moscow has been actively improving its UAV and electronic warfare capabilities and using them in hybrid operations against NATO member states.
The Institute's report says Russia continues to leverage its partnership with U.S. adversaries, including China and North Korea, to offset resource shortages. At the same time, North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un continues to reiterate his support for Moscow and its war in Ukraine. According to the Institute, this allows the Russian Federation to pursue hybrid operations against NATO members, such as the incident from January, when German authorities reportedly failed to down suspected Russian reconnaissance drones flying near a German military installation where Ukrainian forces have undergone training.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz clashed with his rival Friedrich Merz in a long-anticipated televised debate on Sunday. Parliamentary elections in Germany will be held on February 23rd. Speaking about migration policy, Merz accused Scholz of losing touch with reality. Take a look at this fragment of the debate.
Mr. Chancellor, I am sorry, but you are glossing over this situation, and you are describing a situation that has little, I don't want to say nothing, but very little to do with the reality in our country.
I think what Mr. Merz is proposing here is against German interests. It is against everything that is of the utmost importance for our national welfare, for the welfare of our country. And that's why I say, why should we be so stupid? I say it with these clear words. Why should we be so stupid that at the moment when Germany, under my leadership and after many, many years, has finally achieved what we have long fought for, we would allow others to undo it?
Scholz, please, you don't live in this world. What you are talking about here is a fairy tale castle. It has hardly anything to do with what is happening in the reality of cities and municipalities in Germany.
French President Emmanuel Macron welcomed the Prime Minister of Canada at the Élysée Palace on Sunday. Their meeting precedes the two-day AI Action Summit scheduled to take place today.
Speaking on the eve of the AI summit, French President Emmanuel Macron said that accessibility to the technology remains a key priority.
Europe will accelerate, France will accelerate, and therefore, for us, France, we announced tomorrow at this summit 109 billion euros of investment in artificial intelligence over the coming years.
The AI Action Summit will be attended by heads of state, CEOs and stakeholders. The main goal of the summit, according to the organizers, is to set out scientific foundations and standards for sustainable development and cooperation. Prime Minister Trudeau has reportedly said that AI development without compromising climate change goals of the G7 is a key priority.
It's essential and it's important, because not just it's going to transform our world, but how we do it thoughtfully, deliberately, responsibly is being decided right now.
On Thursday, France signed a contract with UAE, estimated to be worth between 30 and 50 billion euros, for the creation of data center megaproject in France. The data storage facility is considered an essential component in the AI technology race.
For the 100th day in a row, thousands of protesters, predominantly students, have taken to the streets across Serbian cities, demanding government accountability for the November tragedy in Novi Sad.
As has become customary, protesters observed a 15-minute moment of silence, 1 minute for each victim killed when a train station roof collapsed in Novi Sad. Protesters continue to insist that the government, which they see as responsible for the tragedy due to its negligence and corruption, be put on trial. The protests, which began at the site of the tragedy, have spread across the country, triggering a political crisis. At the end of January, Prime Minister Miloš Vučević stepped down in response to mounting pressure from demonstrators.
Georgia is no longer cooperating with the EU to amend its controversial foreign agent law, the Council of Europe announced last night. The law, enacted in August of 2024, requires NGOs that receive 20% or more of their funding from abroad to officially register as pursuing the interests of a foreign power.
The foreign agents law sparked nationwide protests, with the opponents of the legislation calling it Russia Bill and stressing that it could be used to threaten civil liberties. Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Alain Berset, visited Tbilisi in December 2024 to discuss establishing a joint group working towards amending the controversial law. Although the formation of the group was agreed on, the subsequent formal letter requesting its establishment went unanswered. Berset spoke with Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze earlier this week and was informed that the Georgian government no longer wished to implement changes in the law.
Military units from the United States and South Korean armies are conducting joint exercises on the Korean peninsula. The drills prompted an immediate response from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who slammed the cooperation, claiming it leads to more destabilization in the region. The US President and Japanese Prime Minister have agreed to work toward a complete denuclearization of North Korea. Seoul's foreign ministry has welcomed the latest commitment between the two officials, saying it aligns with South Korea's policy directions. Additionally, the ministry pledged to continue close cooperation with Washington and Tokyo to achieve the goal. The remarks came amid Seoul's growing concerns over Donald Trump reviving personal diplomacy with Kim Jong-un. Kansas City Chiefs failed to reach a historic three-peat and lost the Super Bowl to the Philadelphia Eagles 40-22. Watching the game at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans was also Donald Trump. This marks the first time a sitting U.S. president attended the biggest American football game of the year.
Donald Trump's history with the National Football League has been tumultuous in the past, including the American president blasting quarterback Colin Kaepernick for taking a knee in the name of social justice. After flying from Florida to New Orleans, Donald Trump met with participants in the honorary coin toss, including relatives of the deadly New Year's Eve attack in the historic French Quarter. The game also featured the famous halftime show. This year, the featured performer was Kendrick Lamar, who just days ago won the Grammy Award for the Record and Song of the Year.
And that's a wrap for World News, but do stay with us. World Talks coming up next.